Time
here we
now
go.
for Nick's NFL tiers. Here we go. Nick, you've had quite a bit of movement in the ranks after a busy week 9 around the NFL. Why don't you run Brian through the updates here for this week?
B, major overhauls. The committee understands these are going to be the most controversial release yet. We're ready for the blowback. For the first time ever, we have an empty tier and we have a relegation. Show the tiers, America. Relegated. Okay. The Jets, they're gone. They're not even listed. They're going to be on Colin Cowherd's best teams in college football tiers next week, right behind Notre Dame. So that's where the Jets are if you're looking for him. Adam Gase is staring around. Where's my team? Not on this list. They're out. There he is. NFC East, you stay the NFC East. Mock draft season, Lions move down there. The still fighting tier is interesting. These teams haven't yet given up. They are a tough out each and every week, but they're not going to be a playoff team. Now let's zoom in on the parts that matter. AFC Playoff Battle. 5 teams remain. 5 teams enter. 3 will remain. Bills and Dolphins fighting for the AFC East. The loser there will be fighting with the Browns, Colts, and Raiders for the final 2 wild card spots. 3 of those teams will be in the playoffs. 2 will not. All right, now let's get to the cream of the crop. We'll start with the one major flaw department. For the Seahawks, who have moved down after that loss, and the Titans, the major flaw is terrible defense. For the Cardinals, who Kevin Wildes demanded the committee move up, and after looking at the data, despite a loss, they did move up, in fact. Their one major flaw is lack of experience, and the Rams and Bucks, one major flaw is obvious, serious questions about the viability of their quarterbacks. Now championship caliber. The Saints coming off a dominant victory. The Ravens getting back on track. The Packers getting back on track. And you've got the Pittsburgh Steelers with 3 straight final play of the game wins. We had to move them down. They're no longer the #1 contender. You know why? There is no #1 contender. Those teams are fighting to separate themselves from the rest so they can be the #1 contender for the top spot, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. No reason to move them around. So, Brian Westbrook, this is your first time seeing this. I know, this is a little, let me pull back the curtain a bit. Brian sent a very long notarized letter asking to be on the committee. I voted for you, Brian.
Wow.
The rest of the committee members said no. So I know there's some bitterness that you were not consulted on this, but what do you think of what the committee did, Brian?
What disappointment. What disappointment. I sat down, I researched, I wrote a letter, and still didn't get on the committee. There is some disappointment there. But, Nick, when I look at this, there's even more disappointment. I'm disappointed in you as a leader of that committee. First of all, the Steelers played down the competition. We all know that, but they still found a way to win. So they should not have been moved down from the contender spot down to the championship caliber. But here's one thing. Here's the second part. The Saints should be moved up. They actually moved the team down. They moved the Bucks down a level. So they should certainly be moved up to the #1 contender spot. They have the offense. We already knew that. Drew Brees can connect the ball down the field, connect the dots, and they still have a ways to go offensively, getting Mike Thomas back involved there. But defensively is where they showed up. And this is where they can give Kansas City problems. They can rush with 3 or 4 guys and get problems and pressure onto Patrick Mahomes. And at that point, now you put Marshawn Lattimore on Tyreek Hill. You try to get a matchup between Travis Kelce and Malcolm Jenkins a little bit. Slow that offense down. That's the problem that the other teams have done for the Kansas City Chiefs as well. Slow down the offense by playing coverage in the back end, but they can get the rush on the quarterback. That's why they should be moved up to the #1 contender.
Yeah, you make a bunch of really good points. And the Saints, I need to, for the Saints, learn a little more about Michael Thomas and his overall status with the coaching staff and the team as that continues to be a simmering story. But if you don't hear any negative news out of there and the Saints continue on this path, you very well could see them in that #1 contender spot next week, Kevin Wildes.
Petition to move the Steelers up to their deserved position as the #1 contender for reasons I will lay out henceforth. Reason number 1. Yes, they have some ugly wins, but you know what? they win games. Yeah, they were down to the Cowboys by 15 points in the fourth quarter, but they won the game. In fact, let me check my notes, sound effects of me checking my notes. They won every game. They won every single game. And they're in line for the bye. So this pipe dream of like, maybe they'll be down. They'll literally play less playoff games than the Chiefs. They're in line for the bye. Number 2, and no one wants to say this, there's 4 teams that are averaging over 30 points a game. They are the Seahawks, who we can't stop blabbing about. They're the Chiefs with their underhanded pass and behind-the-back passes. There's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Oh, why would we ever draft Jordan Love if we've got Aaron Rodgers? And, of course, the Saints, the GOAT, and Jameis Winston out there eating W's and getting playing time. Well, you know who's averaging 29.4 points a game? The Steelers. The Steelers have a good offense. Nobody wants to talk about it. All anyone wants to talk about is their defense, which, by the way, is also fantastic. Third best defense, right behind the Ravens and the Rams. Colts, Dolphins, and Steelers all right there. Fantastic team who are undefeated. So I will petition for the Steelers to get a position as the number 1 contender.
Yeah. Okay, so listen, I'll be very quick here before you go, Brandon. Wilds, remember before the year how I sent you a laminated version of my preseason picks? I'm going to send you via certified mail a printed off laminated version of the standings, because that's what you want. You want a standings. And here's the thing about standings. You can get them anywhere. Everyone has them. They're undefeated, so they've got to be there. Yeah. Anyone can show you the standings. That doesn't take a committee. That doesn't take analysis. That doesn't take any next level stuff. So somebody, baby, grab it off the printer for me. I just printed it off. She's gonna bring it down to me, and I'll send it your way. Okay? So that you're gonna get the standings in the mail shortly. Brandon, go ahead.
Yeah, listen, Nick, I love your tiers. It's juicy, it's entertaining, but I still have a lot of issues with it. Can we see these tiers again? And I'm going to start from the bottom. I love your Adam Gase photo there, but you continue to double down on disrespecting the Jets. Can we see these tiers, please? Can y'all throw it up there? I would like to see this. Even Adam Gase, the picture of Adam Gase, that was awesome. That was brilliant. That's an issue for me because you continue to disrespect them. But then also the NFC East. Nick, someone has to win this division. It's the most entertaining division in football. So you have to pick one. Then we go to, the contender deal. So like someone, if you have a tier, there has to be a team there, and I would say that there's a couple teams there: the Saints, the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bucks, and the struggling Seattle Seahawks. They're the number 1 contenders. But I want to petition something as well. Can we add a tier? The watch out tier. And the watch out tier is for the Kansas City Chiefs, because when you look at the remaining schedule for them, they have the toughest schedule in football. They could potentially lose 3 or 4 games. Let's look at this, Nick. The Raiders, you already lost to the Raiders, the Bucks, and if you think the Bucks are done, then you don't know football. And then the Broncos, they'll give you a good game, but you should win that one. And the Miami Dolphins, you said this Miami Dolphins team will make it to the playoffs. They're really good. Brian Flores is coaching his butt off. The Saints, oh my goodness, the Saints should be right there at number 1 contender. And then the Falcons been playing sneaky good football the last couple weeks. And the Chargers, you should have lost to the Chargers week 2. So, hey, Nick, can we get this tier?
Like it. Yeah, so here, listen, the Chiefs are going to be fine, and their worst case scenario is 14-2, and you guys do have to look forward to whenever that second loss of the season comes, and we can pretend the sky is falling around them. But they're not going to lose multiple games the rest of the year. You don't have to worry about that. However, Jenna, before we move on, I would like to acknowledge what was not acknowledged by Brian, Wilds, or Brandon, which I would assume is just exactly a tacit acknowledgement that I'm correct. I said,
are you talking about Tampa?
And the Bucks,
are you talking about Tampa?
Their one flaw was questions about quarterback, and nobody said they took issue with it. Nobody piped up and said, wait a minute, what about Tom Brady? So listen, your silence is deafening. And listen, you're not yet ready to admit verbally I was right. That's okay. Eventually
I heard it this time, and I heard it an hour ago. But I'm going to ignore you. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm growing as a person. I'm not going to continue to have these arguments with you over the GOAT, Tom Brady. Not going to do it.
Okay. Okay.
Can't believe we got to get a week in before we get to do this again. All right, time for a little drawing a blank. Isaiah Thomas, as we switch gears, and Michael Jordan's bad blood, well documented. It continued this week when Zeke joined Shannon Sharp on the Club Shay Shay podcast. Take a listen.
Who would you say are the 5 toughest players that you've had to face?
Again, and you can just go by the winning records, right?
Right.
Magic, Kareem,
Okay.
Bird, Dr. J, and then I would say Jordan.
And then I would say Jordan. Nick, Isaiah Thomas saying Michael Jordan was the fifth toughest players ever faced is blank.
Yeah, it checks out to me. I mean, we've got some amazing Jordan highlights here, and we can just continue to let them roll. What you're going to notice in these highlights is who he's not against. The Pistons. Because he ain't had many highlights against the Pistons because they whooped him repeatedly. And I also shout out for him including Dr. J, the 15th greatest player of all time, who is historically underrated because people don't include his domination of the ABA. Listen, ask Cliff Robinson or Byron Russell who their toughest competition was. They probably say Mike. But for Zeke, he has a different history there because Zeke ran the 80s while Jordan was running to first-round exits. Like, that's just, that's just the history of the league, folks. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Nick, I think
Nobody
you're
else?
probably right. So my comment was, it was deceptively true. Because at first, I'm like,
Yeah.
Isaiah Thomas is hating again on Michael Jordan. Come on. And he kind of threw Dr. J in there to further that hate, in my opinion. But the other part was, when you look at it, rivalries depend on one team winning one time, then the other team winning the other time, and going back and forth. He didn't have that same type of rivalry with Michael Jordan because, of course, Jordan was just getting his career started, and then he's adding Scottie Pippen, and then they go on to dominate the 90s. So it actually is factually true, but it still comes off as hate from Isaiah Thomas, again versus Michael Jordan.
Jenna, this is over the top. And this is how Nick Wright sounds when we're debating Tom Brady. He begins to sound like a hater. When you hear Isaiah Thomas speak on these topics on Michael Jordan and GOAT and toughest player, he begins to sound like he's a hater. And this is Nick Wright to me when we're discussing Tom Brady. And now we can start to add in all quarterbacks. We do not see eye to eye on any quarterbacks.
All quarterbacks.
Quarterback change there. Look, I don't think this is that incendiary. Isaiah is a great player, 2-time champion, 1-time finals MVP. In fact, if you add up LeBron's finals performances and his finals MVPs to Isaiah's performances and finals MVPs, you still come up one short of Michael Jordan's finals MVP. So very close. If you take LeBron's career and add Isaiah Thomas's career, you almost get Jordan's career. So I think he's totally within his right.
Jenna,
that's just math.
You see,
that's just straight math.
Yeah, I understand, but I just want to remind the audience we're having a Michael Jordan discussion and an Isaiah Thomas discussion. And is it Nick Wright that brings up LeBron James? Of course not. It is the Michael Jordan crew that is so paranoid about LeBron so far surpassing Jordan that Wilds couldn't help but a little drive-by on the actual GOAT because his take is becoming so untenable.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.